All right, welcome everybody to the Crypto Show's Digital Cash Evolution, and we're coming to you from KDMT in Denver, Colorado. You can also catch us in Miami on 880 The Biz, in Houston on 1110 AM KTEK, and on KDOW 1220 in San Francisco. Today we got a great guest, Paul Snow from Factum, and he's going to tell us a few things. So Paul Snow from Factum has joined us. And Paul, you know, we were just talking to Jason Bloomberg and some of the stuff that we heard from Krugman in Las Vegas. Basically, cryptocurrencies are inherently criminal by the mining, according to Jason Bloomberg from Forbes. And Paul Krugman said that cryptocurrencies are no more necessary than a fountain pen with facial recognition. What would you say to that?
Well, since Krugman compared the utility of the internet to the fax machines back in the 90s, I'm not going to necessarily ascribe a whole lot of insight to that kind of remark. I think the cryptocurrency and the blockchain does some amazing things. And, to the assertion that only criminals use cryptocurrency, I think it's a pretty blanket statement for the fact that without cryptocurrency, we had plenty of criminals.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Factum is not a criminal institution?
No. Factum is not a criminal institution.
Okay, so how does Factum operate if you guys aren't laundering money and committing crimes?
Well, for one thing, Factum is focused on data and about securing data records and creating provenance of operations so that businesses can coordinate their business processes with each other without a centralized database that they would have to ascribe trust to. If you solve the data integrity problem, in other words, you can prove what are the valid records and what are not the valid records, then you take the entire computer security problem and reduce it down to keeping secrets. Because data that isn't secret, you can prove is absolutely correct. And thus you're not having to build walls around systems of record to try to ensure correctness that when breached, we no longer know what the truth is. So Factum is building this. But let me give you a little backstory about criminals, cryptocurrency, and the current financial system. North Korea has been accused of mining as much as $200 million in Bitcoin. This came out somewhere around January or February this year. A month or two earlier, an article came out that they've already figured out how to counterfeit the new $100 bill. We spent $3 billion to secure it, and they can now counterfeit the $100 bill. The observation here, though, is that Bitcoin was secured by some neckbeard guys who wrote cryptography, maybe in their mother's basements, for all practical purposes. And North Korea is forced to follow the rules, because if they don't follow the rules, they don't get their Bitcoin. They don't get their $200 million worth of Bitcoin.
Right. You cannot counterfeit Bitcoin.
That's right. You can't counterfeit it. You have to follow the rules. On the other hand, despite the fact the $100 bill is backed by armies and agreements, treaties, and subject to sanctions should you break the rules of the world's financial system, North Korea can still commit fraud and break the rules and counterfeit these $100 bills. And the conclusion is math is more powerful than armies.
Absolutely, yeah.
You are able to enforce good behavior with math. What Factum is doing is looking to use math and the blockchain to create trustable business processes that cross jurisdictions and organizations within divisions, even within the same company, because the math just makes things work.
I think your original title for the company was probably more descriptive of what you guys do. It started out as Notary Chains, was the original name of the company. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea was a notary is not enough. You need a chain of notaries. You need to know how something progresses through a supply chain. You need to know how it progresses through a process like loan origination. You need to know how it processes through a process like collecting data with IoT devices,
right?
Medical data. Where does your medicine come from? There's so many things that a blockchain can help with.
Absolutely.
You're part of another organization, the Texas Bitcoin Association, and by extension, the Texas Bitcoin Conference. Can you tell me a little about that?
The Texas Bitcoin Conference was formed by a bunch of people in Austin, Texas, that were part of the meetup in 2013. Mm-hmm. And the first conference was the first conferences technically were in 2013.
I'm playing dumb here, but actually this show started out of that meetup in planning that conference.
Oh, nice! All kinds of history here.
Yeah, and a lot of people with like minds were really interested in crypto. We didn't know where it would go. We didn't know what the projects were. We were fascinated with things like what Jason King was doing at the time with Sean's Outpost, and
you before that you did passing bitcoins around the world.
Yes.
Now for remittance, this is a great example. Tell us about how that worked and what it was for, because did it aid in any kind of crime?
No. Well, it aided in a donation to a charity. If that's criminal, I guess, call me guilty. What happened was in 2013, we wanted to demonstrate that you could move tokens across international lines, and you could do this in a reasonably timely fashion and without a lot of cost, and you could do something good. And so I put up a proposal on Reddit that people contact me with their Reddit IDs. And if your Reddit ID checked out as somebody who's a real person, then you could join in this demonstration. And we sought people around the world to participate. We ended up with about 12 people. We were able to take a Bitcoin that started in my wallet. I think it was about a half a Bitcoin at the time. And we were able to send it from one person to the next, all within about an hour and 40 minutes. There were 11 international transactions, 2 domestic transactions, and at the end of the demonstration, the entire amount, because the participants donated the transaction fees that ran about a nickel each. And we deposited the money with the One Foundation that was established by Jet Li, and at the time was responding to an earthquake in China. And the bottom line was in 2 hours it could go through 11 international transactions, the distance between parties somewhere around 2 times around the world, and land in the account for Jet Li, and he would be able to use that. He had access to that Bitcoin within 2 hours.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's so it's just a good demonstration of the peer-to-peer nature and the mobility of funds
right
at a very early stage of the industry.
Yeah, it was very, very early. There was no transactional pressure. Now Bitcoin would be a little harder to do. The fees would be a little higher. But there are other technologies like, Dash, that have cheaper transactions, Bitcoin Cash, IOTA, a whole host of technologies is arising on the basic infrastructure to create fluid financial transactions that, by the way, create an audit trail of money flow to allow yourself, if you care to be an upstanding citizen, allow yourself to prove a level of honesty and compliance that's not really possible in the greatest mixer. For us in the crypto space, we know what a mixer is. That's where you get a transaction and now no one knows where it came from and where it will ultimately go. And the greatest mixer in the entire world is the legacy financial system. all you have to do is cross a few jurisdictions with banking, and now nobody can trace the money.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I think that even a number of banks have demonstrated the invisibility of such funds, such as HSBC and others, by laundering millions and millions of dollars using billions even. Yes.
Billions of dollars.
So coming back a little bit to our audience, wanted to touch base on Factum's like business model. Like what does Factum bring to the business community? If I were an investor, a new investor in the crypto space, how could I get involved with Factum or invest in Factum?
Okay, well, there's a couple of ways. One way of looking at Factum in our technology is to consider the public protocol. Factum is a distributed and autonomous protocol that's run by a set of parties. The membership of those parties is algorithmically determined, and those parties run the protocol. If they fail to do their job, they get kicked out.
Okay.
So that protocol is all independent. A lot of parties have proposed and campaigned to become what we call ANOs, or the authority node operators. And these people campaign to demonstrate what they bring to the protocol and their technical savvy and their contribution to the distributed nature of our protocol. We try to get people running servers in different parts of the world, and the community makes these decisions and builds the protocol out. The protocol comes with a lot of features and governance, but one thing that Factum shares with Dash is the ability to create a grant pool and distribute tokens to support building infrastructure and building businesses that use Factum.
You're saying the protocol enables that?
The protocol enables it.
Okay.
And the standing parties, the people that have standing in the protocol, are able to lend their support, and the support can be measured by the protocol and the grants distributed.
So they can signal support on the protocol also?
Yes.
Like, and how do you know? Is that like a wallet signal? Is that a user
Factum is
signal?
a data layer, which means that everyone participating in the network has a digital identity. This digital identity is incredibly powerful for not only tracking things like, who am I and am I an American citizen, stuff like that. You can track the identities of devices, and you can track identities of participants in a protocol like Factum.
Okay, that's great.
And that means that they can collect their standing with their protocol and directly append their support to other identities that represent people who are represent grants, or represent someone who wants to be an ANO, or represents some other aspect of the protocol.
So reputation and governance. That's great.
So as we're coming to break, go ahead and throw out the information about the Texas Bitcoin Conference and where people can find out more about that.
Yes, the Texas Bitcoin Conference is going to be on the 27th and 28th of October. You can learn more about the Texas Bitcoin Conference by going to texasbitcoinconference.com. And the conference itself is a little different than a lot of other conferences. We focus a lot on the technology, a lot on education. And this year we're looking at governance in projects that are built in the cryptocurrency space or related to the cryptocurrency space. We have quite a lot of great speakers like Patrick Byrne and others that will be speaking in the conference.
All right, and we're going into break, so we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Crypto Show's Digital Cash Evolution right here on the Bloomberg Radio Network, and we're joined by Paul Snow of Factum. Paul, we were just talking about the Texas Bitcoin Conference. Let's go back to that a little bit. And the theme of the Bitcoin Conference this year is governance.
Yeah, so it's we're talking a lot about governance right now, and I personally think that governance is a big deal. It's one of the major reasons that I love Dash. I think that Dash is an innovator and has brought a lot of innovation to the governance space. We were just talking with Jason King.
Well, I can tell you for sure that governance is very important at Paul's house. And Linda is the governance over there, and that's why she's off finding the list right now.
Interesting. So, yeah, it sounds like you've already recognized that this is a growing theme about around the Texas Bitcoin conference, enough to dedicate the conference to this idea. Tell us about that. Like, who's coming on? What are you trying to expose? What kinds of talks should we expect? How does that look like?
Well, one of the things that came out is there is a bit of grant money from the Factum protocol that is creating a governance track for Factum at the conference. And a lot of the people running our protocol, the ANOs, the authority node operators, will be in attendance for a Factum summit that's part of the conference. And we'll be talking and answering questions about how Factum does governance there. Decred is looking to line up something similar as part of the conference. And of course, we're still working with Dash to get you guys there as part of the conversation.
That's great.
You were talking about funding. Can you talk about the Gates Foundation thing a little bit and what that was?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I would like to hear that too, because that did make big news when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation made a contribution to Factum.
Right.
But yeah, I am curious, like, what does that look like from the inside of Factum, and how is that playing out? What is that being used for?
Yeah, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave us a grant to do a medical wallet in Africa, particularly in South Africa, as a stepping stone. We're in the second phase of that grant, working with IPRD to create the medical wallet. Now, the idea of the medical wallet is to ultimately give patients control of their own medical records, and to be able to give doctors permission for those medical records, so that when they need treatment, they can have all of the medical records. So anyway, the idea is that you've got a very, very mobile community. You have fairly unsophisticated patients. You have chaotic medical care. And the idea is, when you walk into a clinic, nonetheless, you're able to get your medical records to the doctor so that they can make an informed decision about your medical condition. There are diseases in Africa like AIDS and drug-resistant tuberculosis and malaria and cholera that the treatment needs to be managed in a straightforward and correct way, or you could kill the patient. And if you don't know where they are in their treatment, the tests are very, very expensive to figure out where they are so that you don't kill the patient.
And this was also to help curb the AIDS epidemic in those areas as well, right?
Yes. And all the servers needed to be inside of South Africa. So what we have launched for them is a private Factum network that anchors their data onto the public network. And the idea is they can set up blockchains in other countries like Ghana or Botswana or any other African country. And because all of the proofs of data in South Africa go to the same fundamental cryptographic proof layer, you can transfer data from South Africa to Botswana to Ghana to Kenya to wherever, Zimbabwe, and they still have the cryptographic proof that works. They can basically track it, and that ensures that when you have a migratory population, they can move in and out across borders and still maintain their medical records. And I'd ask you, could you put your hands on all your medical records? If somebody said, I need all the medical records for all the x-rays and vaccinations you've had to have, could you produce those?
No. I tried to get my daughter's dental records sent, and it was a fiasco.
Yeah. and so what happens in many cases with technology, you have the leapfrogging effect, where the system is so bad that you put in something really, really good, and places in the Western world that have something that's maybe a little better than so bad, but not as good as what they're building, catch up later.
Well, and I've said for a long time, as soon as I got into cryptocurrency, I realized that America was going to be kind of last to the game, last to the party when it comes to cryptocurrency, because third world countries and places where cryptocurrency and platforms like Factum are actually solving problems, they're going to be the leapfrogs, right? They're going to leap ahead of us. And not only that, in addition to that, particularly with the medical industry, the American medical industry has been restrained from consuming technology because of regulatory compliance matters, right? Like they're still stuck on fax machines because it's still safer than email in terms of privacy, right? HIPAA laws. So I think there's a lot of doctors' offices that still rely on fax just for that reason and will not move into the digitization of their records or, sending just basic stuff via email because it could be compromised and there's regulatory issues and malpractice issues there.
And of course, there's a lot of fallacies because the fax machines aren't safer than email. They're
right. It is a belief. Yeah.
They're transmitting data in raw form. All you have to do is capture that audio and run it through another fax machine. You get it. So,
I had a friend contact me and he's looking at creating a business. They've already put a long time, multi-years into assembling kind of legal documents and stuff like that could be easily used by attorneys, so where they could just access this data really easily through a tokenized platform or whatever. Would Factum be something good for that, or would it be another maybe Filecoin or something like that, or what?
Well, Factum is very, very good at creating the cryptographic proofs of the data that you need. And so we look at it as more of an indexing service. You can put data directly on top of Factum, but keep in mind, this is a blockchain. It's a little like you can put your data on a billboard. And if that's okay with you, because there is a lot of data we put on billboards or we wouldn't have billboards. But if it's not okay with you, if it's really private data, you don't really want to necessarily put it on the blockchain. So what we do is we create the data integrity layer, which allows you to transfer data reliably, safely, quickly, and efficiently. By the way, many of your listeners and you all have been using this technology all along, at least for the last few years. This is the way BitTorrent works. When you go on a BitTorrent network and you have a torrent file, right, that says, and this torrent file is obviously something like a Linux distribution or something like that, because you never use it to download music or videos. But whatever you're downloading, you know what the torrent file represents. You go on the public network and you ask for data from anybody, and those people throw the data in, and somehow magically you reliably always get the content behind that torrent file. Now you might get rickrolled because somebody gives you a torrent file and claims it's one thing and it's really a rickroll torrent, but you will get what the file is pointing to. And that's because all the data that comes in mathematically matches the slots in the file. You don't have to worry about whether drug dealers are giving you data or all those criminals we were talking about earlier. They can still give you all the data, but in order for the torrent file to work, all the data has to match. This is what Factum allows you to do for your medical records, is create a way to query multiple systems, many systems, and collect that, yes, I have it all, and all of it is right. That data that's not right, throw it away. And
right.
You actually have cleanly what you need. The biggest problem with the way we've been doing data distribution up till now is through systems of record, where once the system of record is compromised or once the system of record does not respond correctly, nobody can tell.
Or if it's hacked, you're kind of messed up, right? Equifax.
Yeah, if it's hacked, they get all your data because we don't have a good way of identifying who's who. And so we don't have a security token that works across systems.
All right. Well, it looks like we're coming to break again. So I want to thank you for coming on, Paul. And where can people find out more about Factum and the Texas Bitcoin Conference?
Well, you can come to factum.com and learn all about Factum. And you can go to the texasbitcoinconference.com and learn all about the Texas Bitcoin Conference.
Thanks, Paul, for coming on.